So we got new shoes for the 76 Vet. Those are Torque Thrust 2 from American Racing Wheels, 17-inch. Fronts are 4-inch back spacing. The tires are 245, 45, 17. They fit very nice. Everything clears very well. The backs, I decided I wanted to go big. So those are also the 17-inch wheels on American Racing Torque Thrust 2, but they have 5.5-inch spacing and they are 9.5-inch wide wheel versus 8 inches in the front. Okay, I've got on there 305 45 R17s on there. Nitto, N-I-T-T-O tires. This is the old one that was on there. It was 275/60 R15. So you can see that's a bit wider, and I checked everything to make sure the trailing arms were going to clear and before I bought them, and I did. There's the size of the tire, and they do clear the trailing arms. However, I got one little spot where there's a little bit of contact. Take you to the, it's on the frame, not on the trailing arm. Right in this area here. Now, because of the modifications I put on here, if you can tell that the place where it's making contact is above the center line of the wheel, so raising the body up, since the tire curves in, might give me the clearance I need. I'll have to play with that. The other thing that I have, I dialed in a lot of negative camber on the backs here, and if I reduce the amount of negative camber is tilted that way. If I reduce the amount of negative camber, that should pull it away from the frame. Third option, if neither of those work, is a small spacer. If I have to go that route, I have, I think, 1/8 and 1/4-inch spacers that were on the Kragar mags that were on here that I didn't like because they are not bolt centric, they're slotted. So unless you get them on exactly right, you're going to cause an imbalance on the wheel. So if I have to go with spacers, I will end up going with just a bolt-centric one so that it doesn't have the opportunity to throw the wheel out of balance. So that's where it stands for today. I am going to, in spite of the fact I'm going to have to take it off to potentially to put a spacer on, I'm going to put the other wheel on and see if I can either raise the frame or change the camber. So I'll let you know what I do, and just so that you can see, there's the coilover shock. And you can't see too well from here, but there's the adjustment. I just need to raise that up however much it takes to give me some clearance here, and then see how I like the stance of the car and the clearance in the wheel well and all that stuff. But I will keep you posted on that. Quick update, I just installed the tire on the driver's side, and it does in fact clear the frame. So I don't know whether the adjustment will take care of it. It's not a lot of contact, but I don't want any. The other thing that could be a factor is maybe because of the shims that had to be put in there to get the thrust angle right on the alignment, it may have this one out just a wee bit further than the other side. But I will come up with an acceptable solution to the problem. Got my wheel spacers. Okay, what I decided to do was to go with a 1-inch because I didn't want to put a 1/4-inch spacer in there. Actually, I put one in on the other side, and I wasn't comfortable with the amount of thread that I had engaged on the bolts. They said you had to have a 1/2 inch, and I don't know if I had that. The other thing is there's two different kinds of spacers, hub-centric and bolt-centric. And in case anybody doesn't know, I'm going to explain what that means. So hub-centric means that this big hole fits exactly on this hub right here. Bolt-centric means they don't care about the hub, the bolts do the aligning. So these are bolt-centric, and the reason is everything I looked at said that 76 Corvettes were 70.3 millimeters on this hub. And when I measured it with my calipers, or my caliper, I was getting like over 73, and I was afraid that it wouldn't fit. So these are 76, and this hub right here, which is a brand new one that I put in during this RestoMod, measured 76. And boy, am I glad that that's what I got. I'm going to change the camera so that you can see really well. So there I'm zoomed in on how this spacer fits the hub. And there might be a little bit of play, but I doubt that the 70.3 would have fit. So the other thing, I went with 1 inch because when I measured, these bolts did not stick out past 1 inch. So I am going to use the bolts that came with the spacer. They should be the same thread and pitch to actually put the spacer on, and hopefully they don't stick out beyond the spacer. If they do, I'm going to have to grind them off, because that was the whole purpose of doing this, is having it fit properly. So I'll just get a couple of these on, and then I'll shut the camera off while I put the others on, because by now you've got the idea. And what I will do is I'll take a straight edge and run it across here and make sure it doesn't catch on these bolts, because the other thing is, if your wheels are made in such a way that these fit between some openings, then you're okay. But I wasn't sure about my wheels, and so I decided to go this route. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put those on and check to make sure I don't have any clearance issues, and I'll be back. And I should have zoomed that for that, but I've got 2 of the bolts on. So here's the inside of my wheel, and American Racing, the makers of the Torque Thrust 2s, did leave recesses so that if you needed to put a spacer on, you'd have a place if the lug nuts stuck out. So I don't really have to worry about that much. And if you look at these, let me go get a straight edge. If you look at where the indentation is, if I go across the top of these two holes, it's above the top of them for the most part. Might be a little bit below it, but comparing that to the hub, we're going to do the same thing and go across there. So it's actually a little below that. That would be plenty to clear that lug nut if it was sticking out, which it isn't. I can tell that. The bolt might be a little bit out. So it's a good thing they have those indentations. I don't have to do any grinding of my studs, which is a nice thing. So, point is though, had I known that, I should have looked, but had I known that, I could have gone for a thinner spacer. I don't think I'm going to regret this, but that's the way it is. Okay, so one of the things you have to do is you have to torque these lug nuts down. To 75 to 80 foot-pounds, according to the manufacturer of the spacers. Okay, there's the click. And you have to retorque them, and they mean these nuts, not the wheel nuts, after about 25 miles, I believe it was. So what I like to do when I'm torquing lug nuts is, or anything for that matter, is I go around and torque them till they click, and then I go around again and I do them in a cross pattern, which is what you're supposed to do. But I make sure that they click without any rotation of the nut before I call it done. Now, the torque spec is not dependent on the wheels or the spacers. It's dependent on the size of your stud. These are 7/16. So, okay, no rotation there. These are 7/16. So, you know, if you torque them to a spec that's the spec for a 1/2-inch stud, they're around 100 pounds. You're going to be over torquing them and stretching them, and you're asking for a failure. So, okay. Second pass, they all flip without rotating. And like I said, the bolts are a little bit above, but the recesses in the wheel are going to be good for taking care of that. So I am going to put the wheel on and torque it. I'm not going to video it. More of the same, just torquing it down. And that's going to be it for the installation of the wheel spacer on this side. I'll have to go do it on the other side, which is the one where it was a slight problem. And that problem will be solved. Thanks for watching. I don't know if I made myself clear enough on the retorquing of the spacers after 25 miles. the idea there is if you are torquing them and you get any movement in that lug nut before the torque wrench clicks, then I would personally put another 25 miles on the car and check it again. And then the other thing is that each time that you take off the wheel to torque the spacer, then that restarts the clock on the wheel. You got to put another 25 to 50 miles on it and check it again. Same deal. If you check it and the bolts spin before they click, it's not tight enough. And what I always do is I wait until I've got I recheck it every 25 to 50 miles until I can tighten it, and just like this, nothing moves before it clicks, and then you know that that thing is on there evenly and tight, and it's not going to come off on you. And it's not fun when a wheel comes off on you. I can speak from experience. So there you have it. There's the first spacer. And it does stick out a little bit, but I have two ways to adjust if it rubs. I can raise the coilover shock, raise the body up a little bit. I can also dial in a stiffer shock so that it doesn't bottom or interfere. That looks like a fairly good amount of clearance right the way it is now. And I have it jacked up by the trailing arms. So there might be a little bit difference between the ride height once I put it down, but it's going to be very little. That even looks like maybe I'll be able to reduce the clearance there. But that's an adjustment after we get it on the road and run it a bit and find out where we are. Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to put the other one on, and hopefully that's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Two additional comments about this. This is the spacer I had on there, and a lot of them are made this way that that's way bigger than the hub, and these slots are way bigger than the bolt are, so there's nothing to keep this aligned. That's why you want bolt centric or hub centric. The other thing is, when I was jacking up this car with my bridge jack, it was a very close fit, and if I had been off an inch further to the left-hand side, I wouldn't have been able to slide the bridge jack past the tire or under the tire to use it. So this extra spacer is going to give me extra leeway and make it easier to line it up to use the bridge jack. I think I'm done for good this time. Bye. So I'm back. The reason I'm back is I tried to put this hub on this side. It won't go on because of I suppose there's rust and corrosion on the outside of this hub. So I'm really glad that I went bolt centric, and I'm really glad that I went with the 70.6, even though everything was saying that 70.3 was the proper size. That doesn't look all that corroded. I'm going to take a wire wheel on a drill and clean that up a bit and see how much that helps me. Maybe it just has to be torqued on. I'd rather not do it that way though. So I got it on, or I got it cleaned up, and it went on better, but it didn't go all the way down, and I didn't think I could do anything else with I didn't think I could do anything else with the wire wheel without getting something more aggressive. So I have put these on, and I'm trying to pull it down gently with the impact wrench. Now the impact wrench is set on 1. Hopefully you can see that. So it's the lowest power. I'm just trying to get this to seat right. And through experimentation, I know that I can go to level 2 and not be at 75 pounds. So I'm going to bump it up to level 2 and see where that gets us. And I'm just hitting it a little bit each plug. Go over it again at level 2. This might be why they tell you to re-torque it after 25 miles. Wish I hadn't put the other tire on now. I'd go look at how tight that appeared over there, but I'm not going to take it off to do that. I'm just going to hit these with the torque wrench at 75 foot-pounds. Double check to make sure I'm still there. If I ever have to take this off, it might be a little bit of a problem, but I think I can get a puller and hook it up to these two, push on the hub, and it should come free. Now I'm expecting that maybe as I go around the second time, I might have some loose bolts because of this tightening down on it. Not really. That one tightened just a wee bit. As did that one. And you got to go by watching the socket, not how this feels, because it's going to feel like it turns a little bit, but it's just the torque wrench starting to give before it clicks. I really wish I felt more comfortable about that, but what I might do is take a wooden block and actually hammer around this to see if I can drive it on further and then go over it again with the torque wrench. Another frustration with things apparently not fitting the way they are advertised, because when I measured this side measured a little smaller than the driver's side, so I would have thought this one would have slipped on pretty easily, but that's not the case. So I don't know whether it's, just one little spot that's out of round and I didn't measure in that spot, or whether this hub on the spacer is not quite 70.6, I'm sorry, millimeters. I'm going to record this. I don't know whether you'll be able to read it, but I'm measuring this a little bit less than 70.6 millimeters. I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way. It makes it difficult to measure. Well, 70.58. It's as close as I got, but 70.58 is not really 70.6. I'm going to try to drive this with this block and a big hammer, just to make sure I'm not going to record that. Actually, I am going to record it. Maybe it'll make the video, maybe it won't. But this isn't a very big hammer. But we'll put the torque wrench back on it, see if it moved it any at all. Still set at 76. No movement there. I am going to be very religious about checking this. I'm going to do it more than once, because I have the tools in the lift that makes it fairly easy. But yeah, no movement. What's disturbing me is it looks like up here there might be a little bit of distance between, and it's very little, but there might be some room between the brake drum and the spacer. But again, that's probably why they tell you to torque them after you put a few miles on it. As I said, I will be doing this several times just to make absolutely certain that it isn't going to come loose on me. That would be a bad day. But it is torqued on there, and I'm going to put the wheel on, and we'll be revisiting this after I put a few miles on the car. And one last note, always remember to set your torque wrench, if you have a clicker type, to 0 so that you don't weaken the spring in there and cause it to be miscalibrated. That's it for real this time.